Just talking about the secure bubble, talking about the travel and the stress. You just saw what Pakistan's just gone through in New Zealand. Now, Pakistan women's have been given an opportunity to tour South Africa. How much pressure would they be feeling? I have the pleasure to be sitting down with Mark Coles, Pakistan's women's cricket team's former coach, who was in charge of the Pakistan women's team for more than 2 years and brought Pakistan cricket to another level on the women's side. Tonight, he's joining me as Pakistan women's team has announced a tour to South Africa, and I'm going to talk to him about his past experiences of leading Pakistan against the South Africans. What can Pakistan potentially face? What does he think of all the activities that are going on in Pakistan cricket at this point? Mark, thank you again for joining me.
Oh, thanks very much for having me, Soumya, and good evening to you. It's a good morning over here, although we've got a little bit of rain about, but a lovely, lovely day on the sunny coast. I saw that you spoke to Danny Morrison, that fellow Kiwi. I actually caught up with him for coffee the other day. He's finally out of isolation. He was, I think he was had a bit of cabin fever, but now he's out and about. He's back to his normal bouncy self.
So I think, Mark, you brought Danny up, and you're right. I just spoke with him a couple of days back, and it's all huge thanks to you, because you've been the kind of the cornerstone for me, for BaatShaat. You've had me connecting with so many people. I cannot thank you enough for that. Danny talked about the fact that you're living in a very tropical kind of environment. How's COVID? Like COVID, he talked about COVID. How has COVID affected you?
Oh, we've been very, very lucky here. I think Australia and New Zealand have avoided the worst of COVID. So I don't think we've had any cases for over 50 odd days now. So we're very able to be moving around with freedom. We're keeping the 1.5 metre social distance in a lot of places, but generally speaking, we're much 2019, but the world has changed in other parts, and we watch with interest and certainly feel very sorry for what's going on in the rest of the world. It's very sad times, just to note how it's affected sport and people's lives, which is critically sad.
Exactly, and I think the rest of the world is still coping with it, but it's, I think, just you remember the times pre-COVID when you see India locking horns with Australia in Australia and seeing the crowds out there, like, it's like, wow, how life used to be.
Yeah, that's right. It is very sad to see these countries having to lock down, and UK is obviously going through some tough times, and Brian Campbell, the Dutch coach, posted today that they were going into lockdown. So really, really hard for these teams to prepare properly for tours. And then obviously all these world guys that are coming up for the men and the women, and these biosecure bubbles, which makes it terribly hard for teams to, A, to get any tours going, and B, to try and have some form of normality. Sri Lanka are off to South Africa, but it's a very, very insular that they're going to operate out of.
So, Mark, just talking about the secure bubble, talking about the travel and the stress. You just saw what Pakistan's just gone through in New Zealand. England just basically wrapped up their tour early in South Africa, the men's team, and they went home. Now, Pakistan women's have been given an opportunity to tour South Africa. How much pressure would they be feeling? I mean, as much as they're excited about the tour, it gets them out there and allows them to play cricket. How much would that play on their minds when they're going into this biosecure bubble? Would that have an impact on the on-field performances?
Look, I think it possibly will. Look, there'll be accommodation. There's no doubt about that. And they'll be able to obviously operate in and around. At the end of the day, a hotel is a hotel.
Yeah.
And it makes it not to be able to get out. I remember when we went in May 2019, we actually went on a safari and had that freedom to be able to explore a little bit of South Africa, even though it was a very, very busy schedule. This time around, I think they'll be able to explore a fair bit of the hotel. But after 3 or 4 days, a hotel. It'll have a gym, it'll have a pool, it'll have an eating area, and it might have a little cafe, and that'll be about it. And that's about as far as they'll go, except bus to the ground, back on the bus, back to the hotel. And that becomes pretty taxing at best of times, let alone if you can't actually get out and see what South Africa has to offer. And it's a beautiful part of the world, but I don't think they're going to see all of it.
Yeah, so I think in some ways, Pakistani players, even though after what happened with them when the tour started in New Zealand, I think they're enjoying their time out, and it's giving them an opportunity to just refresh. I don't think Pakistani women team is going to get that luxury.
No, I don't think they are, because I think South Africa are in the second wave that they're talking about with COVID. So that'll make it very, very difficult for the government to be allowed or allow Pakistan, the girls, to be able to get out and have a look around. I think they'll be very, very conscious of the whole thing. And because it is in January, we're not talking very far away, 3-4 weeks away, aren't we now? So,
exactly.
The girls are going to have to go through all the COVID tests, and it's just not a nice situation to be in. I haven't had a COVID test. My daughter has, because my wife's a nurse. So, she sort of came home and even, talking to her, it's not a nice test to have. They'll have plenty of those COVID tests. That's one thing they will have, having the COVID test.
Yeah, apparently they're supposed to go through 2 tests, test negative on both before they head, is what I've heard. And I think using commercial flights, Mark,
well, risk. 100%. And we saw what happened to the Pakistan men's team, as you quite rightly said.
Exactly.
And use very strict restrictions on all of this. So I'm sure, from what I hear through South Africa, that they are starting to close down a little bit and make sure that everything is in place, and that the girls will have to go into quarantine. And then they'll be able to get out and play games. But as I said, hotel to ground, hotel again can be very taxing.
So, Mark, they get there on the 12th or the 13th. That's when they land in South Africa. And then they get into a practice warm-up game on the 16th. And 20th is when they're supposed to play the first ODI. You think that's going to be enough time for them to get used to the conditions and all that, provided they haven't really toured South Africa in more than a year?
No, and what I actually hear is that the NCA has been shut down too due to some COVID testing. That I think a couple of staff have been tested positive. So that then makes it very tough for them to be doing any training at the moment, getting used to being outdoors, having little groups together, and to get into that training playing mode. I know they finished that domestic tournament, which has been fantastic, but the break between the domestic tournament and when they go to South Africa, there's not a lot of time. And if places are being closed down due to COVID in Pakistan, then they're going to go in very cold. Now, I noticed that the South African girls are now playing their T20 domestic tournament, and a lot of them, 5 of them, have been playing in the Women's Big Bash over at Australia. So they're very, very match fit. So they'll be ready for Pakistan to come. They know that we were surprised a little bit. We did make sure that we did all our homework. We understood where we were going. We did a lot of background work on where we were going and videos and understood what players we were playing against and fields to set. This time round, I'm not sure whether we are going to be as prepared.
Yeah.
The other factor for me is that I believe that South Africa have got better. They're a better team. They're more confident now. They made the semi-finals of the World Cup last year or this year. Seems so, doesn't it? But it was March. How unbelievable is that? So this year they've been finalists or semi-finalists, and probably very unlucky that they got weather affected. I thought they had a chance in that game against, was it England or Australia or whoever they played? But I did think they had a very good chance of winning. And they probably got the bad end of a rain-affected game. They'll be ready to go. And I just don't know when we last played competitive cricket. That was the Thailand. And I believe, we would have to have batted very, very well to chase down that 150 that Thailand got.
Yeah.
I think our girls are in for a tough time.
They are. So last time Pakistan played South Africa, they lost by 16 runs. That was in the World Cup. They were going to chase 136. They were kept to 119. If I was just to talk about T20, so how the tour is going to progress is there'll be 3 ODIs and then 3 T20s they're going to be playing. South Africa has won the last 3 T20Is against Pakistan. So they've got the momentum going that way. I think under your coaching, Pakistan played their best series against the South African women's team. That was in May 2019, last time when we toured. We drew the ODI series 1-1. That was the first time ever in a bilateral series. Pakistan didn't lose to South Africa out of the 3 series they've played. And in T20, I think we were leading 2-1. Going into the 4th and 5th T20, and South Africa made a comeback. So great memories of that tour.
Yes. Yeah, well, unfortunate last game we didn't field. We probably had our worst fielding display and didn't bowl very well. And they got up and played very, very well and single-handedly basically took the game away from us. And they ended up winning 3-2. But it was a great series. It was a competitive series. But as I said, we did a lot of homework on their players. And look, I'm sure David Hemp, the new Pakistan women's coach, will be doing his homework and just seeing how we played against them. But, and as I previously said, I do think that South Africa are getting better. I think their confidence is better. We played them, and then I think January, February, they went and played New Zealand World Cup and beat them in the one-days. So I think that they've got a lot of confidence. They've got some very good players, and it'll be a tough series for our girls.
Mark, when I look back at Pakistan's progression in T20 cricket or women's cricket, we used to be far away from everybody. We saw South Africa beating us 4-0 to start off, right? I think in your coaching, Pakistan got very close to that standard where we started tying games down, right? Tying series down. We started competing. And now since the last year, the gap has increased. Is there anything you've, talked to Dave Hemp? Has he reached out, when he took the job? Has he reached out to you? Have you talked about anything that he could bring into Pakistan cricket, which will take Pakistan women back to that level that you took it to?
Well, I had a chat to him before he went into the interview for the job. And obviously, look, he asked what in Pakistan, pretty much the basic questions. But we also talked about players and just the current situation there in terms of, it's Pakistan. You face political selections, etc., etc. There's a lot of things that go on that everybody knows about that relates to it does the women's game as well. And I just read this morning, I think someone's not happy about one of the players that hasn't been selected in the final 27 who did well in the domestic tournament. So it's always stirring away in the background. So I just said, you need to be tough. You're going to have to, because, there will be things that pop up that may not necessarily pop up in Australia. Once you pick a team, in Australia, people debate it, but they don't debate it as much as they probably do via media channels in Pakistan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one thing we talked about. The player base we spoke about. I think they're, I'm a Soumya fan. I think she could still offer a lot to this team. Remember, she won that series, or she didn't win it. Certainly tie that series and win the first game with her 4 wickets in the first match. And then in the T20, she at the end to hit the winning runs when we were 2-1 up. So you miss players like that. And I've said it before on this program, I'll say it again. I think there is an issue with the chief selector in Sana, and that's not helping women's cricket at all in Pakistan. People will either like Soumya or not like Soumya, but at the end of the day, you cannot take away the fact that she was the world's number one bowler, ODI bowler, and she certainly has a lot to offer that team on, more importantly, off the field. And when you are in a biosecure bubble, and I've not been in one, people like that are just there because young players have never been in situations like that, but a little bit of experience and that motherly person just to put their arms around them and say, hey, look, this is tough, but, hang in there. I'm here to speak to you. That is what will be needed on this tour, and I don't think we've got that person there.
So what's in your? I mean, you've seen it up close and very closely. You've been not only a clean follower, but you've actually, been around the system and been in the system. What's holding them back from bringing Soumya? She's got so much to offer. There's no doubts about that. What's holding them back from actually bringing her on? I was quite surprised, and I don't know. You've know enough about Rouge Mumtaz as well. I was quite surprised to see her name pop up. I felt Soumya would have been a better choice, but again, I'm just a follower of cricket, and I can have an opinion, and that's my opinion. Do you think am I going in the right direction? Is that would have served Pakistan better?
Oh, well, look, I'll be honest. I think there's past history that goes way, way back, well before my time. And I think one person now holds a lot of power, and that was the opportunity. And that opportunity was taken, and now there is no more Soumya, and she's retired by her choice. But I think it was made very, very difficult for her to carry on. And again, we're missing an opportunity to have someone even involved in our domestic game. Sun has just completely walked away and doing TV, which again, she's doing very well from what I've seen. She's a great analyst of the game, a great thinker of the game, and I think she fits in very well. So it's just, for me, it's a lost opportunity completely for Pakistan women's cricket that she's not coaching a domestic team. She's not involved in any of the international setup as a specialist coach, or, would she be great taking the spin bowlers? She's been the number one bowler in the world. No one can argue that. I think there's just a big opportunity that's been missed. But fantastic that young players and young females in Pakistan listen to her analysing the game. And like anything, when you take on something new in life, there's always that little nervous that comes in. And I'm sure the first couple of times, Sana was very nervous on the TV. But as time goes by, I think she will be as good as Lisa Stalaker and others because of her analytical and that she thinks about the game of cricket. She'll be a fantastic TV commentator down the path, whether that's internationally or just in Pakistan. I believe that the world might be her oyster.
And I don't know, and I'm going to go back again. Every time I talk to you, I become a bigger fan of Soumya. Does she have a few more years to offer to Pakistan cricket on the field?
Not playing wise now, but I think off the field. Look, I think she'd be a great director of cricket for the women's section, women's wing. And if she's in a role, perhaps as an administrative role, chief selector, tick. Specialist coach, tick. There's a lot of boxes that she ticks that you'd think, well, why aren't we using her? And so that just adds fuel to the fire when you sit back and you go, okay, well, something's not quite right here. Because Brendan McCullum's used as a specialist coach in New Zealand. Dustin Ling is the coach of Australia. When you look around, Charlotte Edwards is coaching the strikers, batting specialist for the strike women's team. Soumya, no, not using. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry to say. It just, 1 and 1 is 2 always has, but this isn't making any sense at all.
And fairly honestly, I think PCB has done a lot of great things lately for for women's cricket. But the sudden rise of Rouge Mumtaz doesn't make sense to me as a follower of cricket, to be fairly honest. Yeah, well, Wasim does do a great job,
he's outstanding and has really pushed it even forward a little bit more than Najim Sethi. But Sethi was on the right path. Let's make no mistake there. You know, he was on the right path. He was a forward thinker of what was required of the women's game. But then his term came to an end, and Wasim's come in and really just taken it to that next level. The girls will be travelling business class. They're getting much better pay. They're getting looked after. So I think he's doing all the right things. And let's make no mistake, he's maintenance. He's the driver. What you see, the improvement off the field, is only him. There's no one else. Someone might take credit for it. They are, but he is the one that is driving this.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes off the field to enable teams to be good on the field. I totally get that. But
huge.
About that. Yeah. So what work do you think, Mark, is required by the Pakistan women's team management now to be successfully prepare for this tour, or to take Pakistan team forward?
Well, I think they have to understand the conditions that they're going into. That what I would be keeping an eye out on as a coach right now is Sri Lanka versus South Africa in South Africa, to understand what pitches they may for men's cricket, but they're playing in South Africa. So what's the weather like? What pitches? Where are they going to play on? They'll be similar right around the country. Are they hard and fast? What schedule do the men have and the women have? Will they be travelling a lot? I think there's 3 in Durban, isn't there? So they're not going to be travelling a lot. But I would be looking up who bats first in Durban and who wins second first, and what's the percentage of that? And just understanding that when you win the toss, what chance you have of winning the series if we bat first or bowl first. There will be, like all grounds, batting first is the team wins on 80% of the time. Bowling first, you lose 80% of the time. That's out there. That's just a figure. But you need to make sure and be very, very well. What I'm saying is very well prepared. I would be looking at footage of Marizanne Kapp, Dane van Niekerk, how they've just gone in the women's Big Bash, Mal. And you can pick things like, when does she bowl her bouncer? When does she bowl her slow ball? And if you look at that footage, it's a lot of work. Look at the footage, you start to get a pattern. And you start to get an understanding that the 4th ball of the over is her change-up. Now, whether that's a bouncer, whether it's a slower ball, whether it's the leg spinner that Dane might bowl, Laura Wolver, another one, Lizelle Lee, dynamic players, but where do they hit to? Lee's a very leg side player. So those things being put into the melting pot to really understand tactically what they could face. Bowling to Lizelle Lee, we knew that she's a very dominant leg side player. So we needed to be outside off stump and getting her to play. That was the line we had to bowl. And I guess the difficult part for the girls to practice that at the moment because of the COVID threat that they're facing.
Absolutely. So the question mark I have is they start their tour with 3 ODIs. Pakistan women's haven't played any ODIs or barely played any ODIs in 2020 because of COVID. The only thing they've done is last they played was the T20 World Cup, and then they walked into their own domestic T20 series. They haven't played any ODIs. Would that not be a challenge starting off a tour with a format they haven't touched at all in more than 12 months?
Yes. I guess the South Africa.
So against the side that we've lost 15 games to out of 21.
Yeah. Look, and I think the South Africans, they probably haven't played a lot of ODI or one-day cricket. However, what worries me is the fitness levels of our girls. I don't think they've had a strength and conditioning trainer since Jamal Hussain left. The South Africans will be fit. And I do think we went straight into it. It's tough. It's not easy. It's such a T20 shortened version. I just thought perhaps in that domestic tournament that we've just played, was there an opportunity to play a round robin of one days as well? Now, if you were clever or you thought about it, you would have known that this tour was coming up or nearly ready to be signed. These things don't happen overnight. Oh, I think we'll just go and ask South Africa for a tour. So as the women's wing and whoever's in charge of the wing, I would have gone, right, let's play some T20s. But why don't we play a few ODIs at the end? So just a round robin of ODIs. Doesn't matter who wins. No, winning. It's about let's play. There's 3 teams here. Let's play each other once. So you've played your T20s. That's great. Play some ODIs, some one-day games, and just get the girls used to being out in the field for 50 overs and feel the weariness in your legs and how it feels and what it's like to bowl. Yes, what it's like to bowl 10 overs. And look, at the end of the day, that might have been another 5 days in thinking long term, and we're thinking big picture. Not sure whether it is. Is it a budget? It is budget, but then again, what are we trying to achieve that's coming up to South Africa? Because that's where you do want to try and win. That's where you go, okay, this is going to help Pakistan female cricket if we compete again with South Africa. We're back. People are watching. Not a lot of cricket going on. Follow this series in the women's game because there's nothing else to follow. So they'll keep a close eye on it. I would have thought that would be better off than just having a domestic T20 competition. Yeah, okay, it's great that they're playing, but it's just an tuition.
Now, Mark, when you put it that way, it starts, to dawn on me that we got so excited looking at the domestic T20 happening. We got so excited listening about the tour. We've forgotten how to plan for it. I don't think there's much planning that's happening. I haven't heard any news coming from Pakistan about these girls practicing, becoming match fit. So I 100% agree with you. So I think behind the scenes, there's a lot of work. If they haven't shared that, I'm surprised why. If it's happening, where is it happening? I don't know of anything that's happening at this point. I'm constantly in touch with women's cricketers, and I don't hear anything. They're sitting at home. They're practicing in their living rooms. That's how they're preparing for the South African tour at this point. So, yes, this tour came up. I agree with you. But what's beyond this, I don't know. So do you see this could be, not in some ways this tour is going to happen and it's going to create an opportunity for women in Pakistan to showcase their skills again at the international level. But do you think it's going to benefit us in the long run?
Well, a really good question. We need to be very, very careful here. We've earned the respect from South Africa back in May 2019 to get this tour. There's no doubt about that. They've gone right.
Yeah.
These girls can play. They competed with us. We're going to invite them back because we need some cricket and we need to be trying to compete with India, Australia, England.
Yeah.
However, if this tour, and here's probably a little pressure on the girls, unfortunately, but that's life. If this tour doesn't go so well and we're easily beaten here, inshallah it won't happen, then I think you'll find that the South African go, you know what? No, we'll look somewhere else. Can we play Australia A? Can we play the England Academy? Because they may be better opposition than the Pakistan team. So when I talked about the domestic tournament and have to be competitive in this tour, it's hugely important, I believe, for the future of Pakistan women's that they compete well for the national women's team too, but for our Pakistan A team. So there's been nothing happening in that space. There's no tours for them yet. So that needs to start to happen very, very quickly. So all of a sudden South Africa go, okay, your national team's not bad. Would you like to bring out a Pakistan A team? Yes, we would. Versa, can South Africa, now that we know the men's team's going, the men's South African team, will, if Pakistan turn around and say, hey, want to come to Pakistan and play? Not really, no, because you didn't really go that well. So we've got something else on. Whereas if we do perform really well, then the opposite happens. Hey, look, this is fantastic. We've now got a nation with on a reasonably regular basis. Let's open this up and do the second year. You come to us, we'll come to you.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm bringing that up, Mark, is South Africa has nothing to lose. They've qualified for the T20 World Cup. Pakistan has to go through qualifiers. God forbid if this tour doesn't go that well, that could be a setback for our future qualification, because it's gonna demoralize the team, right? And you know how hard it is when you get barely any cricket to motivate yourself in gaps.
Well, absolutely, and you know, in social media, that there's one sleeping giant here, Thailand. They are a sleeping giant. They've now got all their under-team players going through fitness in camps, and they are starting to get, because of how they performed in that World, everybody's favourites, you know, in that Women's T20 World Cup. Even though they might have got beaten, the way that they played the game, the way that they conducted, the way that they got there, they beat Scotland and Ireland to get there, some of the bigger nations, so to speak. So now they've gone, right, this is our opportunity. Let's get some under-19 girls in. Great idea. Then they can just put, you know, they can be part of the pathway, and our national team's performing. So they're going to, Pakistan will face these teams, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Scotland, Ireland. They are all what I would suggest banana peel games. You slip on the banana peel or the banana skin, you are in all sorts of danger. Very simple. You know, we know Sri Lanka can perform without a Patu. She's a good player. She's a good player. Thailand, well, we just saw what they did to Pakistan in the final game of the T20 World Cup, where they put 150 on the
Pakistan. Exactly.
Well, and thankfully it rained, because I don't know whether it's a big score in female cricket to chase. And you've got, you know, you've got other teams like Ireland and Scotland who are working really hard at the moment as well, even though they are in COVID restrictions. So I worry a little bit, and that's where I go back to Sana. You just feel safe with her in the team because you know that she's world class. You know that when the heat goes on, she's there as a calming influence. And I think without her, you know, we saw in the World Cup, they looked lost a little bit because it wasn't there just to say, hang on. And then Bismarck became injured. And I just felt that there was just something missing out there on the field. And you saw probably the results again in the World Cup, I thought.
I think
West Indies will be another one in these qualifiers too.
Another one, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And they're a big team.
Courtney Walsh, coach now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you talk about Sana and her influence that potentially could change Pakistan cricket, could take Pakistan cricket forward. Where do you see Pakistan going after this tour, Mark? If it goes well for Pakistan, that is.
Well, look, I think that if the momentum for them, then something really to go into these qualifiers whenever they are going to be played next year with some real momentum, and some confidence going in against Sri Lanka and West Indies and these other teams that may not have had this opportunity to play a tour. However, if it doesn't go well, then I wonder where everybody is. And the confidence gets a little bit low. And we all know a Pakistan team that's full of confidence is a team that's really hard to play against. We also know on the other foot, a Pakistan team that's low in confidence is very hard to get back up. United first took over that team, that they were very low on confidence. They were just
very low on confidence,
getting beaten by every single team that played cricket. So it's very, very hard to get them up, and that win against England really started that momentum and that belief. But I don't know whether they've got that belief at the moment, and that's the big challenge for Dave Hemp. And he's going to learn a lot about players and who's tough and who is maybe just a little bit fragile, because they are taking 18 players.
Well, I think you've nailed it, Mark. Pakistan's issue's never been skill or talent. Their issue has been mental toughness. And I think players that have been mentally tough in the past, coming out of Pakistan, have become legends and superstars, right? Do you see anyone in this team who's capable?
100% agree with you. And look, yes, I think she's tough, but she's in a little bit of a rut at the moment. You know, I spoke to her right throughout the domestic tournament. Nearer the end of it, she'll come right, because she's tough and she doesn't like losing. So Nita will be all right. She's played in that WBBL, so she's one that should really be a senior leader of this team. You know, you've got Soumya in there, you've got Javeria, but neither of those two have played in the WBBL and the rigors of the WBBL, day on, day off, day off, day on. So she understands it and she gets it, and she's a very good cricketer. Alia Riaz is going to, I think star as well. So a lot of the T20s and the ODI reliant on her, and in terms of getting the strike rate going and her bowling. She's a confidence player, so she needs that confidence with her game. But the South Africans will know her. They've seen her. They know what she can do. They know that she's a match winner. They will target her, and they'll target Nita, and then they'll target Soumya and Javeria to a lesser extent. But those two,
pretty much,
Alia and certainly Nita in the T20s, and probably Soumya and Javeria in the ODIs are the cornerstones of the ODI team. But, what worries me, Selman, is the form drop away from the likes of Umaima Sahel, who was just starting to come into her own, and Muniba Ali, and their form has just dipped a little bit, and that might be because they just haven't been able to hit balls.
Could it be COVID related, or just because they haven't been out there? What are your thoughts? Just mentally they're not there.
I think a little bit of both. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think, T20, as we talked about before, which I don't know, for whatever reason they didn't tag in any one-day games, but it just doesn't give you, as a batter, really, it doesn't give you an opportunity to score big runs. When they go into these ODI games, they've had a diet of T20, but none of them have really scored 80 plus. And to win an ODI game, you need, and as we identified in May last year, who are the players that are going to score 80 plus for us? Well, Javeria, Nita has the Alia Riaz does, Sidra Amin, but none, Nahida Khan, but none of them have really long innings out of the middle, because it's T20. So the most balls you're probably going to face is 50 or 60 if you open the innings. In 04, you're only really in a T20 going to face maybe 40 or 50 balls, because we all know there's only 120 balls in the innings. Then you come up against 2 quality bowlers, 3 quality bowlers, 4 quality bowlers. Sanaluz, let's not forget about her.
Yeah.
Marzian Cap, Ishmael, and Dane Van Niekerk. There's 40 overs for a start.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 40 overs of quality. One day
if you survive those 40, then you start thinking about the last 10, but it's hard to survive those 40.
Yeah, which is not Dane Van Niekerk. It's the other young lady that's been playing in the WBBL.
Yeah, she's performing well.
What's her, not Van Niekerk? Yeah, she's good too.
Niekerk? Yeah, Niekerk. She's new and upcoming, absolutely. So, Mark, I think this time around, biggest challenge I see Pakistan facing is they don't have the rock, which was Sana Mir from the last tour. Plus, you're not there. I think you had spent 2 years with the team when you did that tour, and you understood the mechanics of the team, and the tour happened to be one of the most successful ones Pakistan's had of South Africa. So in some ways, they're going into a tour with a brand new setup. The Rock is in there, and the coach that knew the opposition is in there. How's that going to affect Pakistan's performance?
Well, look, I don't think I was. It's very nice of you to say it, but I'm not sure whether I was the ingredients behind it. But I think
and many people in Pakistan would agree with me, Mark, when I talk to them.
Yeah, there's probably 200 million that don't, though. There's only 225 million. I'm not winning there. Yeah, but look, I think it does need to be carefully planned, and look, I'm sure David will be watching footage of the South African girls. He'll probably start to understand, having watched this domestic tournament, and I saw that he was taking notes. I will say this: I saw 2 selectors that took no notes. Every time the TV went on them, no notes. So either 1, they've got a photographic memory, or 2, they're not doing their job very well. That's what I would say. But taking notes of players, which was encouraging to see.
Mark, a lot of things
I'm sure he's
photographic memory.
Yeah. True. But what I do think is that he'll have a really good understanding of his rocks in the team, as you talk about, and we've spoken about Bismar Javeria, and then the 2 that are match winners, which is Nida and Alia Riaz, but they need the other 2 to be able to be dynamic in their own games. It'll be very, very interesting to see who bats where, who's going to open the innings, and what plans he has for both formats. Who are the final 18 that are going to be? It's an interesting one for me. So looks like a majority of players that were involved in May 19, but maybe there's a few surprises that may come into that final 18. Diana Bay will be a key with the bowling, with the ball, opening the bowling. So there's a lot of question marks, and it's going to be tough. The one thing that Pakistan will know, it's going to be tough. The South Africans never make it easy. It's not about to make this easy. I can absolutely assure you of that. You know, when we were there, we had rooms, we were on the road all the time, and did not make it easy, because they want to win, they're tough, and they're uncompromising.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're on a rise. And, you know, not only will Pakistan be going into the series without Soumya, they'll be going with a new coach and actually a new selection committee chairperson. They'll be picking a team for the first time. So I think there's a lot to look forward to see how these elements come together to create a successful tour for Pakistan.
Yes, and an important one. Not necessarily for the ICC events, but the 10 points count, obviously. Every T20 you play, there are points up for grabs. But the ICC Women's Championship, I don't think has started yet. This is not part of it. This is just a tour that's been organised. But it is an important tour. Yeah, it's an important tour, as we talked about, to keep that reputation going. Say, you know, this is if we're at a loose end, India and Australia or England, they'll all play each other, because that's what they do. But if we're at a loose end, South Africa, who do we turn to play? Pakistan are cool. Can we go over there and play them? Or can they come over here and play us? And I think that's pretty much what's happened. Hey, look, we're at a loose end, you're at a loose end, why don't we play? The men's team's coming over to here, we'll go over to you. Next time it might be vice versa. The women's team come, the men's team go over to South Africa.
Yeah. And for the first time, Mark, these games will be televised on Super Sports, and actually you'll be able to live stream. You see the live stream on YouTube. So I'm very much looking forward to these games. You know, just to see how Pakistan team performs. We haven't
look, I think I'm really excited. 100%. And I watched the domestic tournament on YouTube, and it was really cool keeping in touch with some of the girls and watching how they're performing. And I thought the tournament was a good one. At least at this time round, it was played at a good stadium on a good pitch, with all the international facilities, which was good to see. So I think that's a real step forward. And so this is going to be really exciting in January. I'm really excited about January now because I'll be able to watch my old team perform and just see how they're going and how much progress they're making. David Arge, it's going to be great to his first Pakistan coach. It's going to be really exciting, and I'm sure he is excited. It's going to be great to see and great to watch them perform and really put in a very good performance.
It's going to bring back memories for sure for you, from the last time you toured South Africa with Pakistan women's team. So any
for me good memories
team players? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was a good tour. I mean, it was were great. Yeah, but the T20s ended sadly.
Exactly. Oh yeah. But at least we competed. That was a big thing. Losing 4-0, and then all of a sudden you're actually 3-2.
Yeah, we did.
So I think for many Pakistanis that follow cricket and women's cricket, we were very proud of that achievement because the fact that we competed and we were good enough to get to that level that we got to. But any parting words, Mark, today for the Pakistan team, for Pakistan women's team that's going to be touring South Africa?
Oh look. I always said it to the girls every time we practice and every time we play, try and be 1% better. So 1% better every day. If we do that and there's a group of 18, you're 18% better as a team. And everybody, if I said, Soumya, can you be 1% better tomorrow? You say 1%. I could be 5%, Mark. Not being 1%. 1%. But I'm happy with 1%. So if you are 5%, that's fantastic because it's 55% better all of a sudden. But I just think they've got to go there. They can go there confident about South Africa. Played them before. They've been close to them, and if they do well to their ability and make sure they stick to their process. We always spoke about process. Don't worry about the outcome. It'll take care of itself if we follow our processes individually and as a team. Understand your role. Don't worry about anybody else's. Just roll to the best of your ability and let's see what cooks up. Because I think if they can do that and understand the role that David gives them and understand that if we can get those batters getting 80 plus in the one days, bowling dot balls are more important than taking wickets, and all of those little things that we put into the cricket, they will compete with South Africa. If we start thinking about outcome-based results, they'll be in for a tough time.
So I totally agree with you. I'm going to totally steal this off you, speaking like a true coach. Do 1% better every time. So that's what I'm going to do in BaatShaat. Try to do 1% every single time better that I do here. But I think
you're much better than that. You're going at 6 or 7%.
Yeah, no, I got to focus on the 1% because that makes my life easy. But I think you're so right, Mark. I think sometimes when we start overthinking, it can land us into muddy waters. So I think if Pakistan women team can just do that, focus on the basics. I think we have the team to compete with any team out there. We do have the girls that can compete with anyone out there. It's a matter of believing and self-believing. So, I look forward to watching those games, Mark.
100% right.
Yeah. I look forward to watching those games live. And you know what?
I'm looking forward
to lean on you again and talk about those when the games
look, I'm here anytime. Hopefully someone listens and thinks, that made a bit of sense, but that Kiwi bloke living in Australia, that was absolute rubbish. Where's the other one, Morrison? We need to speak to him. Yeah. Morrison, the favourite. He's out there, isn't he? No, it's always great chatting to you guys. I really enjoy it. You do a great job. It's okay. I enjoy watching, who you have on and watching your progress. And as I said, you're not 1% better. You're going 6 or 7% better every time. This may have dropped. Having me on might have dropped you back to 1%, though.
No, actually, trust me on this one. It takes me 10% forward. It's always such a pleasure to chat. And I think the work you've done, Mark, it's funny. I reach out to a lot of people, and the amount of work they've seen you do when you were in Pakistan, the way you adopted to the culture, the way you just pretty much became a Pakistani. So it feels like home when I'm talking to you.
Yeah, well, I spoke to someone the other day, and I don't know how we got on, but I said, well, when I die, I want to be buried in my green blazer, because it's really important to me. That's part of me now. I'm sort of half green and half New Zealand. The mighty All Blacks, and then the green machine of the Pakistanis. So girls in green. So that, I've got my blazer. It's in a special place in my room. It's been dry cleaned. It sits in a special suit bag with my tie and my shirt. And so when it's my time, eventually, that's what I'll be put in. For all you Pakistani listeners out there, then there's when I finally leave this earth, then there's a Kiwi bloke that'll be in a green blazer, which I'm sure the Undertaker will go, what? He doesn't look very Pakistani, this bloke.
Yeah. Was he a politician? Yeah. Wow.
We got this right. We need to double this.
That is incredible. And those are big words, Mark. It makes me feel very wonderful to hear those. And it's true. It's funny you say, I'm green, and our Danny, he said he's a Pathan. So you've got, when this Pakistanism gets into, it's hard to get it out. But it's, again, like you have such a huge fan base of people that actually watched you very close. And I wasn't one of them when I was there, but I watched you from a distance. And because I'm an avid follower of cricket and Pakistan cricket, I became a fan of yours. And that's what allowed me to go after you and pursue you to get you on BaatShaat the first time. I remember it was around this time of the year last year when you came on our show. Exactly, around this time. So I think, and I look forward to having you many times on this show, and it's always a pleasure to speaking with you. Thank you, Mark. We'll talk again when the tour begins, because what I would like to talk to you about is if Pakistan picked the right 18 or not, and once they get to South Africa, are they playing the best cricket or not? So we'll talk again. Thank you.
Oh, let's hope so. Inshallah they will. Inshallah. Shukriya. Thank you so much.
Mark, last words before I leave you tonight. Do you feel Pakistan can give them a fight in 1 day or T20?
That's a good question. I think reliable, that they're going to rely on Raz, Alia, Gaz, and Nidadar in the T20s. The ODIs, I believe, and Javeria will play a little bit more of a part there. I think Pakistan against New Zealand in the T20s, the men, or Babar Azam, big loss. That's going to be a tough series for them.
Exactly. Tough series. Absolutely. 100%.
Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mark. Wonderful talking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shukriya.
And goodbye. Yeah, shukriya. See you later. Khuda
Cheers,
Hafiz.
mate.